Okay, so here we are again, and we were going to be looking at flat back on the short box. So same setup as our ram back. We got a nice deep ankle flexion, holding the straps into the hips. Arms are up overhead, and from here, you just want to make sure your elbows are soft-ish and you're just allowing your shoulder blades to settle on your rib cage because it's your spine that's gently growing up. With flat back, there's no change in the spinal shape. It's just the opening and closing of the hip joint. So from here, you literally are just going to inhale, lift the breath into the ribs to start to open the hips to bring you back, and then she exhales and she comes right back up on top of her pelvis again. So inhale to take you back to wherever you're comfortable going, and then she's going to exhale and rise back up. So what's really happening, sometimes I describe this as if this was like the spine of a book. You're just opening the book up, and there it is, and then you're just closing the book back up, and you're just closing the crease at the book. Now, what a lot of people will do, I just want you to kind of just see this, is they'll actually roll their pelvis and kind of do like a round back, kind of a little bit of a flexion through their lumbar spine, or the other thing they'll do absolutely is they start to go back too far, and the pelvis stops moving over the femur heads and the spine continues to go back into an extension. So watching that there's no extension through the spine and the movement all happens in the pelvis rotating over the femur head. So it's just a rotation, rotation, rotation. Again, to rise up, it's the rotation of the pelvis over the femur bone to bring you back up again, not a movement of the spine. So the spine doesn't ever come ahead of you. Yeah, you're in charge of that movement. Now, I suppose the modification would be not holding the bar at all, because the increased lever makes it a little bit more challenging. So you could place your hands at the base of your skull if you like. You can take your hands out in front of you. I've even used a weighted bar out in front to help the weight of your torso behind you. Right. So same idea. She's going to inhale to grow her spine up to open the hips to tip her back. Exhale, find the strength and rotate at the hip joint to rise back up again. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think the hardest part for people, you guys, honestly, is finding the true placement of the leg and pelvis. And this is actually kind of funny, this next piece, because a lot of times what will happen, and just kind of get a feel for it yourself, I kind of talk a little bit like people sit on their pelvis almost like they're melting. It's kind of like a puddle, right?
Okay.
And you don't want to feel like you're kind of a puddle. You kind of want to like gather and rise up a little bit, right? So you're actually sitting, there's tone, right? There's tone in your deep six. There's tone in your glutes. Everything is kind of alive instead of you just kind of dropping. Yeah, and so much more kind of.
And I was going to say, and you really do feel that. I mean, we're talking about the femur in the hip. So if people lose that rolling back, then they've got no tone. But if they continue to think about these two sort of panining towards each other, specifically on the way forward, you really do feel that booty tone to bring you back up.
Yeah. And then the other thing, remember we talked about in round back when you were talking about the knees dropping out, right? The knees, if you truly house the legs with your deep six in the hip joint, the knees won't kind of move away from you. You're kind of pulling that strap into you.
Yeah, so the psoas, or I think particularly more iliacus, is it has to be able to yawn open and close. And I think a lot of times people are so short there and so gripped, and that's why we don't see that freedom of the pelvis moving over the femur head, that they have to be able to sort of yawn this open, or like you say, it's a hinge, and then hinge it back. Not, I don't know what people, we see all kinds of crazy things. Or even they leave it here and they pick that
I think they leave it a lot, especially if you're lordotic. And then there's the different postures it creates for different movements.
Yeah, different quality of the movement, right?
Yeah.
So,
all right, so that's that. Thank you.
Thanks.